She's sassy, but she's oh so classy. It's time for Unapologetically Pandora.
You know I came in and floss and I'm actually awesome. I kill it, I'm getting my way. This grand is old like the Premeire. The sauces I need to go get them a break. You know I'm straight out the 10, spinning like rims. Baby, don't get in my face. I don't like playing pretend. I like making money, not making them men's okay. I'm trying to give me a chauffeur and sit in the belly. We segregated with designer on back till they devastated. Got no time to relax if we hesitate. Heaven knows I read the neon letters on the globe and believe it. I'm feeling conceited. Fill up the tank.
Did we go live yet?
Yeah, we live. We're ready.
Oh, my bad. Hey! This is Keela, also known as Unapologetically Pandora, and we're here to talk about some of these serious things that are going on in the world today. I have a lot to say, but I invited some guest hosts. This is my first live, so y'all bear with me. I invited some guest hosts today who are a bit of experts. I have Leah Edwards. I'll allow you to introduce yourself, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Leah Edwards. I am an attorney in the state of Washington. I spent 9 years of my career being a prosecutor. I spent probably the other 12 years being a defense attorney, both as a public defender and in private practice. I now work for an e-discovery firm that does data gathering for large companies like Microsoft and Target, Johnson & Johnson. We did the opioid trials. So I completely backed out of the criminal field and went to a different field and live in Seattle, Washington. That's where I was born and raised. Went to Washington State and am a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated.
Hey, Sister Greek.
Hey.
Well, thank you for being here. I specifically invited you because of your experience in the legal criminal justice system. And I definitely wanted your take, having worked on both sides as a prosecutor and a defense attorney and public defender. So thank you for being here. Dame, this is a special guest because he used to teach he's my son's band teacher back when he was like 10, 11 years old. My son will be 21 this year. So he had a great impact on my son, so I invited him. He also has his own show, and he's involved in the community, and he discusses these issues. And I'll let him introduce himself as well.
How y'all doing? I'm Dame Wild on Instagram from Uncouth Radio. You can hit the Uncouth Radio hashtag anywhere you listen to your podcast and check us out. We talk about all issues Black, all issues political, all issues that are important to us right now in this day and age. So thank you guys for having me. Glad to be here.
Thanks, Dame. And then we have Mr. Gilbert Richards, the second, the Bruz, also faith-based leader, community activist, and I'll allow him to introduce himself.
My name is Reverend Gilbert Richards II. I am the senior pastor at Bethel AME Church, Maryville, out in Yuba County, about 40 miles north of Sacramento. We are actually in the process of dealing with this with our city government, our police department, and we're just here to talk about anything and everything Black. One of the biggest issues that we have and have seen is a lack of response from institutional churches. That's what people have said. So the church is responding, and so I'm here to kind of represent that.
Thank you, Gilbert. So it's been a long couple of weeks since beginning with Ahmaud Arbrey. We haven't really even healed from that. And then this happened. We have Breonna Taylor, and it's just been a lot going on. So I'm gonna start with you, Leah. What is your, how are you feeling, first of all? And what is your take on all of this that's going on?
is literally burning. We are on a curfew right now, even though there are people that have to get home from work and that are trying to go to the store and various other things. My daughter and my son didn't even want to go to the store because of the curfews. I didn't want them to stop while they were driving. But although people seem to think that Washington is like a melting pot because we have like the highest, I think, incidence of interracial marriages and interracial or biracial children born, I think that what they need to know is that the story is just not that simple in Washington, even though it looks that good. I mean, I'm the product of an interracial marriage. My grandfather is Black. My grandmother was from Norway. So my dad was half Black and half white. And this was back in the 60s, and maybe it was, it looked like it was tough then, but people seem to think that Washington is like this very nice, happy place and we all get along here. It's really not the case. You only have to go 1 mile or 2 miles east or west out of the city to find some of the more racist neighborhoods. My kids play AAU basketball. You can find people yelling nigger, in the stands and various other things. And so painting nigger on people's cars, sending notes to little kids in school with them, nigger, and not being suspended or reprimanded for this, driving by with civil union flags. And I mean, it's been like a low boil, and now it's just bubbling over in Washington. And the eastern part of the state of Washington is very red, and the western part is very blue. And east of the mountains, where I went to school, Washington State University, Pullman, Washington, is a very tiny town, very close to Idaho. It's like going back probably to the civil rights movement when you cross the Columbia River. So, I think we're doing our best here to try to stem the violence and the burning down and the trashing and the, various other things that are going on. But I think it's just we're at a point where we're not feeling heard. We've been run out of our communities by gentrification.
Right.
Where my mom grew up, she went to Garfield High School. That's where it's pretty, like a lot of famous people went there. And Bruce Lee went there. And it was like a beacon of the civil rights movement, along with Mount Zion Baptist Church. And now those places aren't seen as strong places because none of us can afford to live inside of the city of Seattle. It is a place where the homes cost over $1 million. And that's something that would get you maybe like a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. So we've been moved out of the central area. We can't go back to our roots. So they've dispersed us to Federal Way, Kent, places like that. And I think we're just all converging back to the city of Seattle and saying we want our land back.
Right.
We're staying off the Indian reservations in our protests because there's a lot of Indian nations here, sovereign nations here in the state of Washington. But the eastern part of the state is almost calm, and the western part of the state is on fire.
Wow. That's, yeah. In Dallas, they're doing some things in Dallas. I'm going to, considering I come from Los Angeles and I lived through the LA Rodney King riots, what they're doing in Dallas is lightweight. So when I hear people like, oh, they're doing this, they're doing that, and oh, they're breaking windows, I'm like, okay. So I haven't been, and I'm not trying to downplay the people who are actually like those businesses, those small businesses, especially the Black-owned ones that are having issues. Not to downplay it, but it's just like, come on, some broken windows. You guys are okay. Dame, how's it?
Well, we were doing more than breaking. We were doing more than breaking windows. I mean, they went to a city outside of Seattle, Bellevue, which has a high white population, and they completely took over the Braver Mall. So there's the Bellevue Mall, and the Bellevue Mall is, it has Macy's and just the regular stores. The Braver Mall has like Hermes, Gucci, Louis Vuitton. They completely cleared out everything in those stores. Like now the National Guard is standing at South Center, which is a mall that my daughter works at. It's in Tukwila, Washington. And trying to stop people from clearing out the stores. They burned down Nordstrom's, they burned down Old Navy, they burned down a couple other stores in downtown Seattle. So like I said, the city is just at an unrest, and we're trying to You know, the mayor is very, very weak in her commitment to trying to keep, trying to stop the madness and the violence, because now they've started with the rubber bullets and people getting their eyes shot out. One of my niece's best friends from work, eye shot out. She might lose her eye as a result of taking a direct hit with a rubber bullet. So it's not like things are it's just not calming down. Like normally we would see this insurgence of like this, burst, and then people would just go back to normal. And now, unlike, the LA riots, it's almost like it's growing and growing and growing. We just don't know what next. And even without the curfew, we almost want to stay at home because you just don't want to get caught in that.
I get it. Dame, what's it like out there in LA?
In LA, LA is kind of spread out, so it's pretty like you can go to the bullshit if you want to. You can go to where, you can go to the protests. You can go hit Melrose. You can go hit Santa Monica, and it's crazier in the white neighborhoods, which is a difference from the '92 riots.
Right.
We're not tearing up our own shit this time. This time, like I think like 1 or 2 stores got hit in Gardena, and then that shit was over. Like, and I think that was something personal because it was literally like one nail shop in this little cul-de-sac, this little shopping center. But everything else has been north of Wilshire. They've been in Santa Monica tearing shit up. They've been downtown LA tearing shit up. And I think we learned from the last time, how we weren't finna be rolling with not having Louisiana chicken for 15 years again.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So this go round, they decided to take it out there. And then I think some of the black protesters started out there. And honestly, I think the white people out there finished it because the bulk of the stuff you see at the Grove, because they took over the Grove, Santa Monica, I want to say a couple of places in Calabasas, like it's not in the hood. You come to the hood, it's normal. Like you come to the hood, it look like, yeah. So I feel like we learned something a little bit, and that's why you're getting the effective policing immediately, though. That's why you're getting curfew started immediately, right? Because remember, they let us burn our shit for like 7 days before they enacted curfew.
Before the National Guard even came out.
Before the National Guard came in, yeah, they let us tear all this shit up and then bought the National Guard. The day after they fucked up Melrose, the National Guard was in because they tore Melrose all the way up. They was in Venice and Fairfax. I think they like messed up like 5 cop cars right there on Venice and Fairfax. So that's not where, when you think Venice and Fairfax, you don't think that's where the cop car is going to get jacked up at, but that's right. Where it was, and that's what happened. So out here is really interesting because, like I said, it's so spread out. There's ways for you to go to the bullshit and protest if you want to and be a part of the madness, and then you can literally just go back home and chill.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely not what I remember. And at the time, I was our house was getting remodeled in the Avenues, and so we were staying with a cousin in Baldwin Hills, like in the nice part of Baldwin Hills, not Baldwin Village, but Baldwin Hills. And I could see the whole city, and it just looked like Armageddon. It was fires everywhere. And then when we actually came down the hill, she stayed off Hillcrest. You know how the hill goes up in the Dons. And once we finally came down off the hill and I saw all the destruction, I was just like, oh my gosh, wow. But I remember when they were starting to move west, like San Vicente and all that, that's when the National Guard was like, oh, nope, we got to get these Negroes in check. They was like, nah. So yeah, that's crazy. What about you, Gilbert? What's going on in NorCal?
So it's weird. So in the Bay, so I'm from East Oakland originally, but I live in Walnut Creek. And what's interesting is when Mike Brown, Oscar Grant happened, they were down, going on MacArthur, tearing up Fruitvale, the town was getting tore up. They wouldn't hit Emeryville. They wouldn't hit Urban Outfitters. They wouldn't hit the Guitar Center. I told a friend of mine, if I wasn't saved and a pastor, I would have been hitting the Guitar Center, giving me a couple guitars. I couldn't believe. I mean, they hit the Ray-Ban store. And I was chilling, sitting with the wife. We just got back from Castro Valley yesterday, and they have started looting Walnut Creek. Walnut Creek is as white bread as you get in the Bay. If I had to compare, Walnut Creek is kind of like a little bit about not deep into Beverly Hills, but when you start getting into Beverly Hills, it's that kind of area. And they had to call a curfew, and they were looting down the street from the police department and didn't care. But on the other side, and this is the big thing that I'm seeing, on the church leader, the pastoral front, the clergy front, it's a totally different animal. Normally that you've been hearing this, oh, let's pray about it. Let's get the facts. Let's hear what people have got to say.
Give it to Jesus.
From the Council of Bishops. Now, I have to admit, I'm an AME. AME bishops are radical. So they called it out. They sent an official statement condemning it, calling it out, letting it be known that this is not the way we're going. Several pastors, including like myself, we're sitting down with the police chiefs, with the city government, the local government, saying we need to change some things. So my first meeting with my police chief is this Thursday. So we've seen, instead of the inaction and kind of like staying on the sidelines, we see a lot more people tired of kind of holding their peace. Because I can't speak for every denomination, but in my denomination, we follow leadership. And so the tradition has been, if leadership isn't leaning towards condemning this or hasn't said anything, we really wait to hear what they got to say. Right. But now it's been flipped. Now it's, not all, because you still got some, oh, let's pray. Ain't none of us getting up here, let's talking about forgiveness. Ain't none of us sitting up here talking about how can we just, feel better and move on. That's not the conversation. The conversation is shifted to justice. The conversation is shifted to holding people accountable, which is very encouraging, because I'm a little radical and I don't like to be out there on my own little island. I don't know if y'all caught last Sunday's sermon. If not, my boy said I'm a little dangerous for what I said. I don't think so.
I didn't get to check it out yet. I keep saying I will, but yeah.
But the crux of the matter was, there's a thought process that started with James Cone. Martin Luther King kind of embodied it, and it was developed even more in the 70s and 80s, that the concept of salvation goes hand in hand with liberation. In other words, you can't be saved and call yourself saved in the church and not living all the inalienable rights of a human being that a human being deserves. And so just that theology creates this mentality that justice and salvation go hand in hand. So now we're starting to see that come out. Like, we'll talk about it in seminaries, we'll talk about it behind closed doors, but now the church is like, we're tired of saying the names. And
I'm tired.
And the other issue is, and this is where I'm at, I like how white supremacy is being called out. And I know we've been talking about George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery a lot to our community, but one of the most savage things I've seen happen was that Amy Cooper situation, when she called the police on Christian Cooper and weaponized racism and could have got him killed. And people dismiss, oh, it's not a big deal. Oh, that was just a mistake. She was angry. That's how Rosewood happened. Someone lied and said a black man raped me.
Oh, that's been the lie for centuries. I believe, is his name Van Johnson, bald-headed guy that does Revolt TV? I forgot his name, but he made a comment.
Van Lathan.
I was like, wow. He said the most dangerous thing to a black man in America is Karen. That she weaponizes her whiteness and her female whiteness to get black men harmed. And you've heard it from Emmett Till. He whistled allegedly, and then come to find out decades later that woman lied. That's been the justification for many lynchings in our country, period.
That's the one thing we warn our athletes about going to. I went to predominantly white institution. We would warn our black athletes, like, please be careful when you decide that you're going to go and, quote unquote, play in the snow, because if she makes an allegation, you're going to be off the football team and you're going to be in jail for rape. And we've seen it happen so many times in so many cities, in so many states, not just in my state, but all the way to Florida, where boys are being locked up, their whole career taken from them after one allegation. Even when the allegation is proven false later, they don't get their career back, they don't get their education back, they don't get their time back, they don't get anything.
And that sucks. And
that is a dangerous allegation.
Yeah. And I'm let me tread lightly when I say this. I'm not so much against interracial dating, but it is a very real thing that I feel Black men and even Black women, I don't think we have it as hard or to worry about as much because white men are protected, period. You know what I mean? They're pretty much the oppressor. But it is something to consider when you're gonna date outside your race. But
Listen, I'm against it.
I
But
know
I'll
a
tell you
lot
what,
of people are.
because of my own experience.
Me
No,
too.
wait, listen. Because of my own experience, like I have a biracial child. My
Okay.
child is half Black, half Asian.
Okay.
But there are just some fundamental things, no matter how cool you think the relationship is. A lot of times there are some fundamental things and some shared experiences that you need to have with a Black woman if somebody like to be your wife, right? There's some things like no matter how much you try to explain to people, they not never gonna understand. There's some things that as Black people that we experience that no other race, as Black Americans, there's some things that no other race will experience and can understand. So I'm saying that the reason I'm against it because I have learned from my own experience how difficult that can be being a Black man trying to navigate your Blackness around somebody who doesn't understand why the police pull you over. They feel like you must have did something. Someone who doesn't understand why, you know what I'm saying? Who understand why you're posting all these things about the government on your Facebook because they feel like you're being too radical. You understand? So like I've lost white friends because of this, and it's because it's easier for them to ignore our experience than to empathize with it, right? Because that means they have to face their own shit and what they benefit from. So I said all that to say, like, that's why I say it's very difficult. And especially when you get into times like this, what you think them households is like right now?
Mm-hmm.
I know it's a lot of tension.
Oh, listen, I've been talking to a few people who are in them situations, and let me tell you, they like if you're a Black woman who's with a white man, what I've been hearing is, and I'm not saying all white men, all right,
Right. We have
but from the people,
disclaimers out.
yeah, you have to, but because of the people I talked to, they said, you know, they get the why you being hysterical from the white man, why you being hysterical about all this, right? And then the Black man who's with the white woman, what I've been hearing is well, it's not you, so why are you so upset? You see what I'm saying? Like this didn't happen.
Oh.
So and I'm like, when you get into a place like this where it's damn near a dead on race war, if you ain't got somebody who 100% on your side, 100% got your back and ready to empathize and ride for you off top, it's gonna be a difficult household to live in.
Right.
Especially,
or they always got the white person or the white individual in the relationship always have a brother or a sister or a mom or a cousin that hops on somebody's social media and says, well, you know, da 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 da, and they say it to the Black, you know, the Black part of the marriage or the Black person in the marriage, and then just all hell breaks loose, you know, right there on social media. And you be like, damn, like I gotta go to bed with her. Like I always wondered this, like I gotta go to bed with her. I know that's how her brother feels about me. I know what he said to me. I know what he called me. And then just wondering, like, maybe she thinks that way too, but just ain't really said it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Like, but they seem to, I mean, like I said, in Washington, they seem to navigate it very well.
Yeah, well, they do in Cali, and especially in the Valley, in Los Angeles. But, and then, you know, Los Angeles is a melting pot anyway. I don't know. I have my own
The
experience.
base switched up.
What you say?
I just say the base switched up.
Yeah.
The Bay used to be like Seattle, used to be a interracial mecca. But what's happening, and this is kind of where I go, it's you speaking as a Black man, I think brothers have gotten tired of having to explain and re-explain the trauma. That's one. And what I've been hearing is there's been this exercise of intellectual privilege or authority, like you don't have the right to be that mad because it's one situation.
Right.
You don't have to write this isn't valid because people are tearing up stuff. My wife brought something up that was so deep, and I posted it today on Facebook. When Martin Luther King was assassinated, 110 cities rioted and burned and tore up buildings. And the Civil Rights Act of 1968 was signed a certain amount of days later. Oh, I'm sorry, 6 days later. So even though they say, oh, we don't like the response, oh, we don't, you know, they want to dictate the protest from being a knee on the NFL sideline to this. What I'm finding out is from that interracial standpoint, brothers or sisters, you don't want to have to deal with re-explaining or having to validate your suffering, because it feels like as a black body, going out and dealing with the racist stuff outside, where I went to meetings and conference call, not one white colleague asked me if I was okay. Not one white colleague asked how I feel. Still hasn't said anything. And that's a mirrored experience.
Right.
Then to come home and then have to go through that shit with the person that you're with, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
And so I think in the Bay, we saw that with Oscar Grant, Mike Brown, Tamir, right? Because that we popped off heavy up here.
Mm-hmm.
We shut down freeways at least 10 different times up here behind that. And we saw the COINTELPRO that we saw. We busted cops trying to get us to loot.
Yeah,
we busted the folks.
That's what I'm hearing is happening across the nation.
Yeah. We busted agitators that weren't anywhere from the Bay, much less Oakland, and they were the ones tearing up stuff. We weren't the ones. And so I think right now, you know, it's on a level of we need our own, because the whole thing had played out like what Lee was talking about. That whole thing about brothers playing D1, any sport, and getting the dad of some socialite who's part of the booster club bust one of the players and false. That stuff's been going on so much the brothers got tired of that up here. And so that's the shift I see. And interesting enough, I did want to say this. Where I pastor is Trumpville.
Oh.
Where I pastor, they don't care. Where I pastor, the police chief cares.
Okay.
And certain people care. And we're getting together and doing something. But I'm the one little lone radical voice in a black community that's been beat up like deep South.
So they're conditioned.
So they're conditioned. So now since I came there, a few of them, I'm like, okay, fine. But so the interracial scene up there, that's very rare just due to the fact of that climate is hostile to black folk. And so there's no protesting, no rioting. And the good thing is the Marysville police chief, where my church is, he's down for community involvement. He's down for making sure the community's tight. He's on the right page. But it's the kind of city that couldn't wait for protesters and looters.
Right. Well,
Reverend, what I gotta ask you though, Reverend, is would you feel better if your colleagues had reached out to you? Because in my area, I mean, I've had just in my company alone, which has offices in London, Australia, and all these other, I had at least 5 people reach out to me and say, hey, I'm praying for you and your family. I hope you guys are safe. I heard what's going on in Seattle. I heard what's going on there. And it almost was like, I mean, like, you look at the phone and you're thinking, like, maybe they mean well. I get it. But when you're the only Black person in management in a company that large, it's kind of odd to receive a bunch of messages that say, we know you're a Black person. We know you're in Seattle. We know you're probably getting discriminated against, so we're praying for you. Thank you. I don't know. It's like it's awkward for the silence. Like I have a good friend, professor, doctor here at University of Washington, Alexis Harris. She's a Delta, sweet as pie. She said she just burst into tears at a Zoom meeting. My best friend, who runs a Dr. Brown Clinic, one of the premier clinics like for children, African American children in the city, that was built for African American children in the city. She said she got to her 5th meeting on Friday, and when somebody finally asked her how she was doing, she was just like, shitty. What's going on with the meeting? You know, like, because nobody was addressing her. Like, it was complete silence, or there's this oversplash of like, we're so sorry that you're going through this, and we're on your side. We're an ally, you know, kind of thing. There's no in between. There's no like, hey, Leah, how are you doing? Would you prefer they said something to you versus just not addressing it at all?
So I'm gonna frame this. I have to be straight up. If they had genuine concern, even if it wasn't articulated in the best way, I would have appreciated the acknowledgement. But what I didn't want, and I don't want, is I don't want folks to use this opportunity to, no, I'm just gonna keep it 100, to lay their white guilt on me. Like, I feel some of these situations have created environments where folk like, well, I feel guilty. I feel like I participated in this or that. Let me show this unpouring of extra care, not because I really care about what happened or care about the issue, but I'm feeling guilty and I can't feel like I'm the bad person. And so I'd rather it be silence than some patronizing, oh, how are you doing? Da, 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 da. But if it's something like, hey, I just want to check on you, this is messed up, I don't even know what to say, I'm with that. And the reason why I was a little disappointed is one of my colleagues I was meeting with is running for mayor. The others, city council, school board, people who deal with lives in my community acted like it didn't happen at all. And that's what got me. The only person who was really with it from the city government is the police chief. And when's the last time you heard the cops trying to make something right like this? So that's where I was. So I'm like, no, I'm with you. I don't want a patronizing, trying to hug me, trying to make me feel better like it's something they can solve. I just wanted an acknowledgement that what's happening, ain't right. That's all I really wanted to see, if they would acknowledge that.
I try to avoid these conversations with my non-melanated friends, because most of my non-melanated friends are here in the state of Texas, and they're conservative, and I just don't feel like it. My best friend here, she's white, but she definitely understands. She's a libertarian. She definitely understands because she has biracial children. So this is affecting her because it's her family. Her grandson is Black. Her granddaughter is Black. So, she's one of those, what we call an ally. And so for me, being here in Texas, it's just a whole different dynamic. And what I've experienced, like, I didn't honestly experience overt racism until I came here. But what I found is I kind of like my racism straight, no chaser, like it
Southern style.
Yes.
Southern style. I like it right in my face. That's what my grandma's from Texarkana, Texas, and my mom's from there too. And she used to tell me, Leah, you like the Southern racism. She said, the white folks in Texarkana, you know where you stand, and they know where you know where they stand, they know where you stand, and you don't meld. Like, you go down there, white people aren't buried with Black people in the same cemetery. I mean, like, it's just different when you get to Texas, especially that small part of East Texas. But when you get to Washington, you got people smiling right in your face, and then, like, literally months later, you will see messages on their Facebook page that will just be so totally disrespectful and unnecessary. You'll just be like, or you'll go to school with somebody. I went to law school with hella people that I started to just unfriend because I can't listen to them anymore. Like, and these are people that, if you'd asked them in law school, are you and Leah cool? They would have said yes. You know what I mean? But when they talk about you, it's objectifying you. It's, you were sexy, or I like your lips. And you're just like, dang, like, did you see anything about my brain? And I would be like, it's not, and my Black friends would tease me like, all the white boys like you and all that. And I would be like, ha ha, very funny. And, and you keep it moving. But then later on, you read some of the stuff they write, you're just like, really? Like, you were talking about wanting to be with me? Like, I would have heard that and been like, never, like, and that's how Washington is. It's like surprise racism. Like, it's there. You just got to figure out which one it is. And it's almost like digging for an ingrown hair. Like, You can feel the bump, but you can't find the hair, but it's in there because it hurts, and then you're like, okay, I got to find this ingrown hair. I got to find this ingrown hair. Then all of a sudden you be like, that's the one, right? It's not right there in your face. It's just, you never know who it could be.
Right. Now
and oftentimes it's women here that are married to Black men or have Black kids. They feel the right to say some of the most outrageous things to you. I think they mean well or something, but my son plays on a team, and most of the moms are white, and then their kids are Black. And some of the stuff that they just start getting on Facebook and social media saying, I just be like, man, do you really? And they be like, sister, I just feel like we're sisters, and I want to let you know I'm okay with you, and I'm down with you. I'm just like, oh, if you gotta say it, you really don't mean it. Just be down with me. Don't write me this long paragraph. I don't need that, But they feel like that Black kid gets them into a certain place that they can talk to you like I would talk to you, Keila, or you would talk to me. And I'd be like, you're not there yet. Like, bring it, start here, bring it all the way down, and talk to me here, because we're not that cool. Like, we're not there yet. It's not that funny to me yet.
I just would rather, just kind of listen and hear what I'm saying instead of interjecting your position on it. But I want to switch reels a little bit. I want to talk exactly about what we all saw in video that they are trying to justify. You saw the medical examiner's report saying, he had natural causes. He may or may not have had some substances. He had coronary heart disease. Just all of this ridiculousness. But it doesn't take a rocket science to know that if you cut off someone's air supply, that things like that can happen. So they had to get an independent autopsy done, and it was like, no, he died by asphyxiation. 9 minutes on this man's neck, and they're just really trying to justify it. And I it's almost like with the Rodney King beatings. Remember, Dane? We saw Rodney King getting beat up. We saw him.
Yeah.
And I don't care if he was on PCP. I don't care what the circumstance was. Y'all were whooping his ass, period. And they got acquitted. And that's when the people got pissed off. And it's just kind of like with this riot, it was a perfect recipe. You have people been locked in the house because of the Rona, which I ain't heard nothing about. Have y'all heard anything about Corona since this started?
Nope. People been looting all over Washington and rioting all over Washington. We like, well, what's the numbers on the coronavirus right now? Because ain't nobody got a mask on. Like,
nobody got
the best time to have one on.
Right. Nobody has on a mask. No social distancing is being practiced. I don't hear any updated numbers. I don't hear the fear mongering behind it. Not saying it doesn't exist, because I know people who have lost people. I know people who have been sick with it. So it is a very real thing. So definitely don't want to downplay it. I'm in the house. I don't play. I have asthma, but I haven't heard about that. But you have that. 40 million people apply for unemployment. 40 million. That is a lot. You know what I mean? So people can't pay bills. And that little punk ass stimulus that they gave is nothing, where they just gave corporations, how much did they spend on them? Like 500 million? 500
yeah.
402 billion.
Too damn much.
While the average person, we get 1,200. Like,
Sheila, can we stop at the unemployment thing? I really gotta just introduce my thoughts on this. The unemployment scam. Okay, so if you ever receive one of those letters from Nigerians that say, I have like $50 million in a bank, and this is in that poor grammar, misspelled words, no punctuation, and you don't believe what, like when you read it, you just be like, man, what is this BS, right? Like, and you just erase it, right? But somehow Nigerians hacked a government system of unemployment and drained it of millions of dollars before they could find out that they did it. I'm like, really? The Nigerians did that? They can't even write the perfect fit. Like, here's right now, they went from these really whack-ass scams that the only people that fall for it are like random people that be on Dr. Phil, old white ladies or something, like old lonely people, to hacking into a government association and getting them to pay money to them before even checking if they existed or had been employed or unemployed. I don't believe that. Like, I want to know what Nigerians did it.
I don't know.
The Nigerians are responsible for that.
Insane. I don't even know. I just feel like the whole system. That's why I named this Nero Fiddled while Rome burned. Because your president, I know he's none of our presidents here, but that fool in office, he basically sat and twiddled his little Twitter thumbs inciting violence against protesters. And I'm like, most of the ones protesting and rioting are like your base.
But then they ran up on him at the White House, though. And he had to go run up in the bunker.
He in his damn bunker somewhere. And I'm like, you're just not going to address this publicly. And then when you do decide to address it publicly, which he did this afternoon, was to say, oh, you're going to prosecute, you're going to do this, you're sitting in the military. That's the problem. We already have a militarized police state in every state in the United States. But, You know what I
It's
mean?
gonna lead to more killings and more anger and more rioting. Like it's like a vicious cycle. You're gonna bring in more police. People are gonna get more angry that you're taking over there. Like you said, we're already sad about being in the house. I don't even know what week it is that we've been in the house. Like I think it's week 11 or something like that. 10 or 11 weeks on stay in place or shelter in place order. And then you bring in more police and tell us that just now when we're starting to get out, we still got to go back in. That's like fuel to the fire. That's like throwing gasoline on the fire.
Right.
Well, I want to go back to what you said, Kayla, about while we're here. When I saw the George Floyd video, I haven't watched it. I still refuse to watch it. Because after Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbrey, all of that, I was just like, as a pastor, I have to suppress. Like, what I've been posting on Facebook is the nicest stuff I could say, and half the stuff I rewrite it like 3 times. But what I would say to it, what I think is going on is that 45 is not aware that this pandemic was supposed to bring out the best in America. We're all supposed to love each other. Kumbaya. Let's set our racism aside, our sexism aside. Let's just get through COVID. And to show that what went down, and to show it on a live, and to show that, I mean, the guy was smiling when he had his knee in his neck.
Demonic. I'm just gonna keep it real. He was gloating in Asian. What's his name? Tao, whatever his damn name is. You know, he's gloating, and they've been involved in other acts of abuse. The Asian cop has been sued. He won, but he was been sued before.
And what other people don't acknowledge, all 4 of them were on top of him, not just one person. Then on top of that, even when the medical examiner said, well, he had a heart attack while they were on top of him. Well, if he had a heart attack while these men were on top of them and he couldn't breathe, that's still, Lee is the attorney here, but I would still say that was at least negligent homicide or murder. But that was
this leads to the question that there's a lot of people that have been so against the felony murder rule. And the felony murder rule basically says you're responsible for any crime that comes as a result of any felony that you decided to commit. So if I break into the bank, actually I had this case in Seattle. One of my middle school classmates robbed a bank, and his co-defendant shot and killed a police officer. Well, my friend was also charged with murder for murdering that police officer because the underlying felony was robbing that bank. And as a result of that felony, that officer got shot and killed. He didn't shoot him, but he was responsible for that murder. Right. So in my opinion, if you intended to assault somebody, that's what you were doing. You were on his neck. You weren't arresting him. He was already arrested. He was already cuffed. All that was already done. Your legal job was already over. So if you intended to assault him, felony assault him, because if you obstruct an airway in the state of Washington, that's automatically a felony assault. If I grab you around the throat, that's a felony assault too. So if you intended the initial felony, you now intend every felony that is a result of that initial felony, which is murder. It's not depraved heart murder, which just means kind of, I was callous, I left you in a car, I left the baby in the car when it was hot outside. That's kind of what they charged him under, that 3rd-degree murder. I left the kid in the house with the pit bull, and the pit bull ate the kid. That was kind of negligent, and it was kind of depraved because I hadn't fed the pit bull, and the pit bull was hungry. No, this is not a depraved heart murder. This is an actual felony murder. And prosecutors argue it all through the United States. And now all of a sudden, when it comes to the police, they don't want to apply that same felony murder rule.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how it works so well against us, but it is not working for us.
Right.
There's a lot of young men that are locked up for breaking into houses. And when they broke into a house, and when the homeowner shot and killed one of their defendants, they were charged with murder because they intended to burglarize the house. So they were charged with the murder of their friend, even though they all went in there together.
We have a question in one of the comments, Leah, for you. It says, are the police protected of murder if they commit it while in the act?
While in the act of being a police officer, when you're acting under your official duties and you are effectuating your actual duties and you've been deputized to do those type of things, arrest somebody and do all of that stuff, you can get up to that point of what you're supposed to do. But once you're to that point, everything else you do is outside of the area and the scope of your job. His job was to arrest him and to, you know, to put him in the car, to do those kind of things. We all saw the pictures. I didn't watch the video because I stopped watching videos like a year and a half ago. You can't live and work in the city that I live and work in and still try to like stay kind of sane if you watch that kind of stuff all the time. Like I couldn't watch it because the first thing I saw was this big image of this white man with his hand in his pocket, which lets you know that he is not afraid. First, he knows you're videotaping. He's not afraid of losing his job because he's watching you videotaping. He's not afraid of anybody attacking him and getting him off of this man because he has his hands in his pocket. He's not scared. He has the crowd under control. He has Georgia under control. He has the crowd under control. And he does not look like he's bothered. He is the epitome of unbothered. I couldn't watch the video because just the photo was enough. And it's like, once you have him arrested, 9 minutes is, people talk about, oh, well, he didn't have it wasn't first degree murder because he couldn't form the requisite intent to commit a first degree murder. People have this law and order, criminal minds kind of idea of what first degree murder is. First degree murder is not sitting down and writing out a plan with you and your friend. Me and Dane got together. We like, dog, we're gonna go hit up the mall and then we're gonna shoot this dude. We're gonna go in his house. We're gonna take his dope. We're gonna do this. That is not first degree murder. That's first degree murder. Yes, it is. But first degree murder requires a moment in time. That's all it takes to form intent. And that moment, according to case law, has come to mean really a second. A second could go from I walked in and I caught my husband with somebody and I thought about it and I reached in my purse, grabbed my gun and shot him and her. That moment was already there. I did it instantly. I might get off on the heat of a murder, but somebody on the street might say, nah, you had a moment to consider whether you're going to go back out the door or whether you're going to reach in your purse and kill him. And prosecutors successfully argue this all through the United States, definitely in my state. And I don't know how they think that in 8 minutes and 46 seconds, that man did not form the requisite intent to kill that man.
Right.
He had to have.
Dane, what's your, what do you have to say? You've been quiet. What's your whole take on all of this?
My take on all of this is there's something vastly different about this. And I don't know what it is. I was telling somebody earlier today, I said the 60s riot was like the first part of the movie, the first movie. And you know how they have the sequel, which was the 92 riots, and the sequel is never good as the original. And then when they get into the end of the trilogy, they ramp that shit all the way up. And I think that's where we are now. We're in part 3. And part 3 is something different because the first 2 riots was Watts, and it was contained to Watts, just Watts. Second riot was LA, most of LA, and contained to just LA. This one is nationwide. We have nationwide rioting, looting, and protesting, uprising all at the same time. This has never happened. And this is the first time that it hasn't been majority only Black people out there protesting, uprising, rioting, showing their face, acting an ass. Like this time we have a lot of people with us, and I think there's a change in that. And because of that, we see even the change in the tenor of a lot of the government officials who are finally stepping out and admitting that white supremacy is an issue. We have never had this many government officials outright saying, you know, systemic racism is a real thing. Like they've skirted around it for so long and for so many years. And this is the first time that I've been hearing it on a national level. Like Gavin Newsom was talking about it. The mayor of Minneapolis was talking about systemic racism. So as much as people want to feel like we doing it the wrong way, I feel like we are about to get the right results, right? Like I feel like we're pushing that conversation to the forefront. Oh. And I listen, I'm not like, I know a lot of people want to get mad at the looting, and I'm not against it because we tried every other way. We tried every other way for so long. And how long can we march? How long can we kneel? How long? And because when we did those things, y'all, they had a problem with that too. Right. And I want y'all to understand as Black people, white supremacy is not going to be something that's going to be dismantled by, we got to take it. Okay. Power is not given. Okay. Power is taken. And we know that. And we know that because this country celebrates when they took power, right? This country celebrates 4th of July. This country celebrates the Boston Tea Party. This country celebrates Crispus Attucks. All of those things are acts of defiance and acts of rebellion. We have to finally realize as Black people, we shall overcome or love the racism away. We can't love the apparatus of white supremacy away. It's just not gonna happen. And they have been using the tool of our souls and our forgiveness against us for so long. We tired. We tired. Like, look, and as much as they want to say we acting a fool, y'all better be glad. The only thing, we not even trying to get even, because we not out here trying to just kill white people. We not here just trying to kill cops. We, as mad as we are at y'all killing us and our Black bodies, we fucking up property, not people. Yeah. So you better be glad we still have the souls that we have. We still have the hearts that we have. And that's where I'm at with it right now. I'm like, yo, by any means necessary, whatever's going to get what we need done, whatever's going to get people to understand and realize that we had enough of this shit. We're not going to keep taking the rinse and repeat cycle of somebody getting killed. We get outraged. We march. It goes back to normal. There's no conviction. We cry. We outrage. We march. Nah, something got to happen. Something got to change. And I think this is the time. And I think we take this energy with us, and we take the energy that these young people are giving out right now, the energy that these young people are putting out, and we as the older generation, we harness that and take this shit into November and get him out of there, and we get all them other old white people out of Congress and get them old, like, and we got to start running our own people, period. We got to, if we want something, if we want to create and enact real change, we got to get in at the bottom. Like, we got to start showing up to council meetings. We got to start showing up and talking to all.
We got to join the school. We got to join the school boards. We got to join the school board.
Like, we have to get involved. So I'm like, y'all go ahead and tear shit over there, and we'll start planning the next phase, right? We got to start planning that thing that they need, the organizational side. But the organizational side is not going to work without them tearing shit up, because people got to know we here. People got to know we tired. People got to know we ready. People got to know it's time to stop it. So since they letting that be known now it's time for us to take the baton and take it to the next level and take it into the governmental side, take it into the school board side, take it into the educational side, take it into the community side. Like, that's the part that's going to have to be on us. And we have to stop all these docile Negroes from wanting to be scared to look a certain way. Like, niggas is so worried about optics. Like, they gonna look at us like we animals. Like, nigga, they killing us like we animals already. They already look at it. So it don't matter. Like, at this point, y'all got to stop caring about the optics of what they gonna think about us, because no matter how we present ourselves, no matter how much we try to do the right thing, no matter how much we just a bird watcher who's a fucking comic book writer in Central Park, they are going to try to weaponize your Blackness against you. They don't know your education when you walk up. They don't know you have 2 or 3 degrees. They don't know that you're not a criminal. They decide what it's going to be off top when they see you. So for now, for me, I'm like, damn what they think, damn what the optics look like. We got to live for us and how we want to move. And if this is the way we got to move, and if us moving this way means we got to tear some shit up, then we need to tear some shit up. And that's where I'm at with it.
And I feel the same way. One of the commenters said, chaos without any organization or plan. I'm paraphrasing what he said, Mr. Henderson. He's like, it's just chaos. Like, we need something strategic. I don't know what that is, because we got people. One thing I do want to throw out: we do not show up for the midterm elections the way.
Historically we haven't, but we have the last 2. Historically, we haven't. So, and I want to say that because since Trump came in, and I think, to me, this is the good about Trump.
Okay.
Since Trump came in, I have never seen this many African Americans engaged in a political process more than just the years that they're presidents, right? Because it used to be we only talked about politics and political issues and political leanings when it came to the presidential election.
Right.
But I've seen since we started on Cool and since we've been doing the show, this is the most political action I've seen of people actually knowing when the election's coming up. People asking me about who are the people that's running, who we should be looking into, people actually paying attention. When I went to vote for the midterms this year, I was like, yo, I ain't never seen the midterms popping like this. Like, it was out the door. You know what I mean? Like, the lines for the midterms was out the door. So I think we are learning. I think we're getting better. And I think Trump woke up a consciousness in us that we needed to, because if Hillary would got elected, yeah, we probably wouldn't be in the middle of the shit show we in right now, but it would have been business as usual.
Right.
We would have been part of the status quo, and we would have stayed asleep on making sure we got to those midterms and, you know, making sure that we started to try to hold these people accountable. Because think about it.
Right.
How often, like, did we in the last 2 or 3 years, we just start hearing black people say, yo, we need to start holding Democrats accountable for our vote.
Right.
We need to start we need to start supporting local elections. Like, that's happened because of Trump. Like, that was a direct
We need to start running in local elections. I mean, there's a brother and one of my sorority sisters running for local legislative seats here in Seattle and Federal Way this year. And I have a good opportunity. They have a great opportunity to win those seats. Like, there's a lot of people saying, okay, you know what? What am I going to do? I'm going to run. Like, they're throwing their hats into the race and saying, I'm going to run for local seats. I'm going to put myself on the council. I'm going to put myself here. I'm going to put myself there. And there's a lot to be said, especially in Washington, for the gay vote. The LGBTQ community, by and large, has shown up for a black voter in need of, like, the vote we needed. The LGBTQ community has shown up in mass to support the black politicians here in the state of Washington. And it's a hard vote to swing. Like, they vote in numbers and they vote a lot. Like, they have voting blocks and they have a lot of money here. They're very, very powerful here.
Yeah, that's what we have to do.
Getting those.
I'm glad you brought that up, talking about voting box. And I've been telling everybody, I've been preaching it for years on my show. I said, we have to start figuring out how to get our celebrities, our millionaires, our rich people. We need to start figuring out how to get them to start building super PACs and start running our own elected officials that have our interests at heart, that can't be bought off top. Like, people that we groom. Because the problem is right now we're voting for people who have already been groomed by someone else. We're voting for people who already been put in there by someone else's money. So that means they have that interest at heart. Whoever put that money behind them, that's who interest they have at heart. That's their base. We need to start finding people and get our money together and start running our own super PACs. So now, if we start looking now, in 8 years, we could think about who we want to run for the presidency, because we've been running somebody from now in different districts, in different cities, and different places, and then we can see who's trending, who's doing well in those places. Somebody said, do we worry about the electors? Yeah, I think we do. I think that's a part of it, and I think because we know the system is broken, but so right now it's like we have to do we have to walk and chew bubblegum at the same time. We have to work within this system while we try to dismantle it. Right? Because we know the system of white supremacy, no matter how much you vote, no matter how much you do, it's never going to work in our favor unless the system literally changes, unless the cronyism and police department changes. Like, as much as I would criticize Barack Obama, the one thing I had to give him props for is when he had the DOJ go in and they were really going one by one, dismantling all those racist police departments and putting black chiefs in at those departments. And the minute that Trump became president, he folded all of those task force. He ended all of that shit. He ended all the consent decrees. So all of those things, as much as we say Barack Obama didn't do nothing, I have to give him the props for that. Like, he went in and really tried to do those things and try to squash, from where he could, try to squash some of that local racism in some of those departments. So we need to start doing it on our end, because a lot of people don't know, you vote for your sheriff. There's no reason that we should have had trash ass sheriffs for 20 years. Right. Because that means they just been sitting there and we've been voting them in. You know what I mean? Like, sheriffs are elected officials, so we need to realize the power that we do have in regard to that. And we do need to get more people involved at a street level, more people involved.
I think most of the time your medical examiners are elected officials. Like, yes. I think, the people that doing those coroner reports, they're elected officials. Like I told Keila, there's police accountability boards. There's people that can sit on those from the community. That they hear some of those police, brutality cases and that kind of thing, and hold them accountable for what they are and aren't doing. Why don't we get on those? Like, it's not just about running for president or vice president or even governor. It's about running for some of the smaller parts.
Yeah, even the more basic thing. The more basic thing is just going to jury duty, representing, so we can represent for our people. Like, black people hate jury duty, so that's why we are never getting a jury of our peers, because we refuse to do that civic. I know it's a headache. I know it's a pain in the ass, but I've talked to so many lawyers, black lawyers, who've been like, it's so disheartening because you get one or two black people who's even in there, and they'll disqualify those two. So you're gonna end up with a whole white jury. So we need to do our part there. Like, there are certain things we could do within the system to start helping ourselves out. But at the same time, this is a system we have to dismantle from the top to the bottom. We have to change just the way it operates, because systemic racism is built into the fabric of our government. Systemic racism is built into the fabric of our police departments. Systemic racism is even built into the fabric of our educational system. When you look at how they based how the kids get the money based on tax money, based on where they live, based on the family property tax. So that means the richer you are, the better education you're gonna get. So like, and even that goes all the way back to redlining. Those properties had higher values because of redlining. So all of this shit is tied together, and it's tied that I hate to be the systemic racism guy, but it's the truth. And that's just the crux of what it is. So until we find a way to dismantle that and make ourselves whole again, we have to work within this system. We have to be smart, but then we also have to tear some shit up. And then we also have to make sure we are engaged in our own political process, because the things that we can't control, we haven't been controlling enough.
Yeah. And I guess we have all the ideas, which I'm glad, because that was what I want to focus on solutions. But we know the problem. We know how to define the problem. We know what it is. Now I want solutions and tangible solutions, because a lot of the things that we tend to discuss, it's like, okay, how do we achieve these things? You mentioned the super PAC. I remember my line sister trying to start one years ago, when, on Facebook or whatever, and it didn't hardly get any support, but she's in the politics. She's a campaign manager. So she knows the importance of super PACs, because that's the donors. Like, that's how these people are getting these policies pushed through, these politicians. This is how they're getting elected. This is why they're so careful on, the politicians are like, their policy platforms are strictly based on their donors, or whatever their donors want, So I'm so glad you guys are mentioning these solutions. And also going back to the jury duty. So and I'm going to play devil's advocate. When we're talking about a jury of our peers and getting us in there, a lot of us can't afford to miss work, right? So
I agree. That's what I said. I know it's a pain in the ass, but we have to try to find a way to make that sacrifice. We just have to. You know what I mean? Because like my attorney friend of mine, she said sometimes you just need one of us in there to stop an innocent man from going to jail. You just need one of us in there to put the kibosh on what they doing on a railroad job. It don't even have to be.
Sheila, did I tell you?
One of us.
I have one black juror that I argued 2 days. We have a Kentucky versus Batson challenge, which is when the prosecutor tries to take a black person off the jury for no other reason than race. And it's on the defense, their burden, to prove that it's race-based as to why they want them off. When we finally proved that and left that black woman on the jury, she was the difference between my football player going to prison for the rest of his fucking life, and he was only 19 years old. I believe at the time we went to trial, he was 18 when he was arrested, and getting acquitted for a hung jury. And then the prosecutor came back from murder 1 to manslaughter 2. And he barely went to prison. That was the difference. One juror, one black lady, that's it. That's what saved that man's life. His aunt is a friend of mine on Facebook. She's been a friend of mine since middle school. His grandmother, I had known her a whole lot. Like, I knew the whole family. One juror saved his life, and that's all we need is one juror. And, there's something to be said for there's these famous people like Drake and Ellen and all these other people that are giving hundreds of thousands of dollars to bailout funds. Why couldn't we raise the same hundreds of thousands of dollars to replace your pay while you're on jury duty? We need you on juries. We can't just say I have to work. We can't just say I have to this. You get $11 a day, I think, in the state of Washington. I think that's what it is, or something like that, for jury duty, which barely doesn't even pay for lunch in anywhere where our courthouses are. But we still have to find a way to say, okay, this is bigger than me. Somebody might need me on this jury, and I need to stay. Like, you've got to register to vote. You've got to go out and get your driver's license, and you got to stay on the jury.
Yeah.
Can I ask something real quick? Because there's something all of y'all are touching on, but haven't really called it out. And that is with the jury duty, with the elections, with the leadership, being in leadership and being black. That we no longer have to every time we run for something, say, oh, have to go out of our way to say we're not just running for the Black folks. No other candidate that I've ever said in terms of running ever has to say, oh, I'm just not running for my own people, but Black people.
Yeah.
And
I'm not
so
just running for my Filipino community. I'm not just running for the Asian community.
Listen,
Yes.
Viragosa got in here in California and was like, I'm putting on for my people, period. He didn't make no qualms about it. And that's what I'm saying. And I'm glad you brought that up, Gilbert. That's what I'm talking about when we talk about optics. We got to stop giving a fuck about these optics, man. And we need to, if we here to put on for our people, then we need to put on for our people. Because
let me propose this just real quick. I want to propose this. Because if you look at the civil rights movement, technically we're more educated, have more aggregated resources, have more influence, have more credentials than we did before. The difference is we live in integrated societies. We live in societies that specialize in separating us, whether it's in the corporate world, in the political spectrum, even in the religious world. There's this thing about separating us because there's this fear that we're going to get together, 2 or 3 Black folks talking, it's like an act of God's going to happen and we're going to get our rights back. But if with all of that, I started looking at like these protests really are the time to make the move. Because while all the attention's there, why can't we have background checks and policies for every police department that if you have been 1 or 2 or 3 unjustified incidents of police brutality, or you have on your record a number of non-justified shootings, why you will not be employed? Why can't we have a national registry for these cops like Darren Wilson who murdered Mike Brown? Why can't we have that all across the nation so the next time a cop shoots someone like Tamir Rice, he can't hop over to 2 counties and get a job as an officer again? Because that's what happened with him. He shot somebody else, moved to that police department, then killed Tamir Rice. And so how can we aggregate that? Because I was looking at the structure of the civil rights movement. Basically, we had our protests. Check, we got that. Second, you had the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, which was killing in the Supreme Court. And then third, you have folks sacrificing to make it work. So that's just something I just wanted to put on y'all. How can we aggregate something like that now where we're an integrated society versus when we lived in segregated societies and we had no choice?
I'm going to let Dame answer that because he has to go. He has to cut out. So I'm going to have him respond briefly to you.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Gilbert, because I think that's an amazing idea that I have never even thought of, and I think that's something that needs to happen. But also, again, I think like the ideas that you have, to me, those are part of the things that we need to come up with as a brain trust when we get those super PACs and we start running these elected officials on our own, right? I think we need to start baking into the cake the things that we need, for structural change, the things we need for systemic change. We need to start baking it in the cake from jump. So when we go to send them to the hill for us for certain legislations, they know that's what we need. They know this is a bill we want. When you go up there, we need a bill to stop cops from being able to go to different places after they kill somebody, just go get hired somewhere else. We need to have it where if a cop kills somebody, that shit needs to come out their personal pension, not some insurance that gets paid by the state, right?
Ooh.
Because we need to start making them have real consequences. So, hey, y'all, thank y'all so much for having me on. I hate that I got to run.
We're going to be wrapping it up in a minute, but thank you. I appreciate you. You'll be a frequent guest, I'm sure.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right. We definitely need some, we need more, but like, I'm not, like I said, I'm not against the riots. I do feel like there's some casualties. If we're going to call this war, there's some casualties of wars, but that's what civil unrest is. It comes with the territory. But I feel like Dr. Martin Luther King said, riots are the language of the unheard. You know what I'm saying? They serve a purpose. Yeah, it's not ideal, but are you listening? I think some people are listening now. I don't know what impact this will have. I've been seeing mixed reviews on my timeline. I've been saying, what is looting going to do? How is that honoring whatever. All I'm gonna say, if some cop kill me, y'all better burn some shit up, tear it up, burn it up.
Yeah.
Do not be sitting up there. You're dishonoring me. You're dishonoring my memory by being complicit and not saying nothing, not doing nothing. Oh, don't do that. In my family, I don't want to hear y'all pleading to the public for peace. No. No, that's real.
I'm gonna need you to do two things. You're gonna know that my mouth got me in trouble. I already been arrested for obstruction of justice. My mouth got me in trouble because I was talking shit to some police officer. That's the first thing. Second thing, I'm gonna need y'all not to have no GoFundMe because I'm gonna have that already figured out. And then third thing, I need you guys to make sure that you know that I didn't do nothing stupid to get shot. Like I didn't.
Right.
I might have been talking, but I didn't make no sudden moves or nothing crazy. And I have a legal gun permit. Other than that, then go and take care of all the business. That goes together. Don't put me on no GoFundMe though. I don't need no GoFundMe. Like unless it goes to my children's education, I don't need to be buried. I'm good. And, other than that, but focus. I mean, it's not like we're saying rioting and looting is the best thing that should happen. I think obviously Gilbert as Christians, we think that that's not, it's unfortunate. But the sad thing about it is that, or the fact about it is that there's insurance on many of those businesses. They're going to be reimbursed. It's going to come back. George Floyd is not coming back. No matter if these officers are prosecuted or if they're not prosecuted, they're not coming back. My father was killed by a police officer, shot as a running suspect when he didn't. My father is about 5'5", looked like a Mexican man because he was half white and half black. The suspect, I think, was like a 6'2" black male, dark skinned, whatever. They shot my dad dead in the street right by our house. This was in 1982. My mom sued the county. We lost. And my dad's killing was really justifiable. This has been going on in neighborhoods for years and years and years and years. There's so many names. There's too many to name in each one of our communities of how long this has gone on, to the point that now we're so tired of hearing. And I think it was Dane that said they've used our prayers, our forgiveness, our Christianity, everything that we want to show them that's good and honorable. They've used it against us. They said Martin Luther King. Well, now there's this meme going around that says, you guys always want to preach the people. We forget. Y'all killed him. Like, he's dead. Yeah. We don't know what he would have done because he's gone.
Killed by police.
And after they show him and Coretta, rest in peace, God rest her soul, after they show them marching and looking all fine in their Sunday's best, they don't show 15 miles down the road or 10 miles down the road that the dogs were sick on them, the water hoses were turned on them, people throwing eggs on them, people spit on them. They don't show that part. They show the pretty part of the civil rights movement. They don't show the dirty, ugly part of it. The freedom riders and the people getting killed on their way to other places to try to protest voting rights movements and that kind of stuff. And they've used that against us for so long that, sure, as Christians, we want to say, don't do anything. Stealing is wrong. That's wrong. This is wrong. Don't. It's not eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. We want to come, we want to be more like Jesus and that kind of thing. But they've used it to the point that we're exhausted of hearing it. I can't hear any more thoughts and prayers. I'm tired of that.
Hold on. I have to say something when people talk be like Jesus. Because there's the loving Jesus, but there's also Jesus who walked up and turned up the temple when stuff wasn't right. And checked everybody and put hands on stuff. Jesus was not this person that sometimes they romanticize Jesus for the Black church as a docile person who just allows certain things to happen. Especially they kind of misunderstand the purpose of the Passion of Christ. But more than all that, it's used. No, I have to say this so it makes sense. One of the biggest myths is that Christianity is a white religion. It's the oppressor's religion. When in fact, the books, the people who wrote it, the people who were about, most of them would be what we would identify as Black, starting from Abraham and the Mesopotamians, going through Egypt, the Hittites, the people who brought up the Israelites. They would be technically defined as Asiatic and African Black. And even how the Bible is put together and all of that. But what's happened is when the AME Church was founded, AME Church was radical. We were starting slave insurrections, teaching people how to read. We were breaking all the rules. So the slave masters started their own churches that gave this theology of obey the master, that gave this oppressive theology, this this servant sufferer theology that we see, that as soon as you're wrong, go ahead and forgive. But that's not necessarily where we're at. Just like the biggest problem that I see right now, and Lee, you brought this up earlier, is this concept like we got to show freedom papers. Like I could be a FedEx deliverer driving, and a white man in the neighborhood feels that he has the authority to confirm I am doing my job, all because he is white and I am black. Even if my job requires me to keep what I deliver and who I service confidential, he feels that because he sees me and the differentiation in our melanin and DNA, he has the right. And that translates all the way down to the police of we're driving, and the last time I got pulled over where they had their hand on their weapon, I was pulled over for not having my GPS in the left-hand side of my car. Wow. Instead, I had it in the center. And I was headed to church, and he had his hand on his weapon to my car. And so, and his attitude was like, jump if you want to get some. And so with this whole thing about white supremacy, people are looking at George Floyd. George Floyd is the end result.
Right.
But we saw the whole model from the stop to delivery drivers to Amy Cooper to George Floyd to Ahmaud Arbrey. And now it's like, where do our rights stand? Where can we communicate that we don't have to take this? How do we disrupt and deconstruct that? That's something that
That's how Trayvon happened. When Trayvon was stopped, I kept saying, well, is anybody like questioning the idea that somebody stopped him out the blue and asked him for his freedom papers? That basically was saying, nigga, what are you doing here? And why are you here? And where are you going? And I was like, you don't have to stop. And then the narrative became, well, isn't it just okay because we had all these people stopping people in the gym, stopping people at the housing, condo complexes, where it's like, what condo do you live in before you come in here? And it's like, I don't have to answer this.
Right.
You got muted.
You got muted. What happened?
We can't hear you. I know he's spitting that hot fire, but we can't hear you.
She going too. We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
Oh, we can hear you.
Now we go.
We're going all
and man, it really bothers me because it's a narrative that as I send my son to a school that recently has some racial kind of things going on, I keep saying, do I have to tell my son whose father is a police officer and whose mother is a lawyer? Do I have to tell my son that he needs to identify himself to every random white person that stops him because he has his hair dyed half and half blonde and half black, and he's got these dreads going out of it and stuff, and he doesn't look like a thug to me. He looks like my son, but he might look like a thug to somebody else. Do I have to tell them to identify himself, or do I have to tell him, well, I know my rights. If you want to talk to me, you need to call my mother. I need to talk to a lawyer before I talk to you. And what is that going to get him? What is the result? Do I want my son alive, or do I want him to be right? Do I want him just to give him the freedom papers, or do I want, it's like the conundrum of right versus relationship. Do I want to have a relationship with this person? Do I want to be right? Well, he could be in the right and still be dead. So do I tell him just to say, this is who, you know what I'm saying? This is who I am. This is my parents. This is my dad. But if we're going to institute that, I need the government to say, this is what we're doing. We're making Black people stop. When white people pull up in front of us in the truck and demand to know what we're doing and what our name is and what we're doing in the community, then I want them to say that they have the legal right to do that, and we have to tell them who we are.
Right.
Because it needs to be government sanctioned so that we can combat it, and not kind of privately sanctioned this amorphous thing out there that we can't really fight because it's not a concrete law. You can't have everybody contacting me and asking me who the hell I am and what the hell I'm doing. Eventually that gets frustrating. And believe me, I've got into it with my share of police officers every time I'm stopped. I think I've had maybe 2 good stops. All the other times I just be like, what did you pull me over for? And they be like, that. I'd be like, yeah, okay, well, I'll get it thrown out. I know that I'm being a smart ass, but I think I'm being a smart ass because I'm like, I'm probably one of the only people that they stopped that I could be a smart ass because I know I'm in the right. You know what I mean? But then sometimes I just be like, Leah, just shut up because, one time I got stopped and I knew my registration was in the glove box. I knew my firearm was in the glove box. My son was in the right side on the passenger side. And as the officer was walking up, I let go of my seatbelt, grabbed my gun, put it in the center thing of my truck, and then closed the glove box really fast, and then reached like I was reaching for my registration again. And my son, when he pulled away, he was like, "Mommy, why'd you lose your gun? You have a permit to carry your gun." And I said, "Son, I'll talk to you about it later." And all I could think was, if I open my glove box and this man sees this gun, he's going to pull a gun on me and my son, terrifying him. You know what I mean? Before I can even, with my shaking hands, get a permit out to show him that I have a permit to carry the firearm that I'm carrying.
Just like
so I just moved it and hid it. You know what I mean? Like, I just kept thinking, like, what's the worst case scenario? White people don't think like that. They're not thinking like that when they get stopped. If we walked into a white person in the park and said, "Do you know you can't barbecue here?" They would look at us like, "What the hell are you talking to me about?" Mm-hmm. But if a white person walks up to us, we're supposed to be like, "Oh, we sorry. Let us put that out. We so sorry we bother your day." You know, like, we suddenly become subservient, and I'm like, I'm not going to do that. Like, that's not part of my personality, which, you know, I don't know. Like, I don't know what the answer to that, Keela, is, whether we assert our rights or we show our freedom papers. But it's starting to just get to be so overwhelming as far as teaching your children what do they say when the police contact them, and how distrustful do we teach our, you know, like I said, in my case, my son wants to be a police officer eventually because that's what his dad was. Right. And you kind of think about, what do I teach my son about that particular gang? I remember my ex-husband saying, you know, we're the biggest gang. We're the biggest and baddest gang there is. And he was like, we're nationwide and we're a gang. And he was like, and we're the biggest and baddest gang there is. And I used to think, man, you guys are like psycho. You know, like, there was a psycho-ness about it, that it was like, they took fraternity or sorority, like, they took that to, like, on steroids, you know, like
the blue code,
the blue, like, it was like the Crips and the Bloods, BGG, all wrapped into one with shield on it. And they was like, you know, we're this, we're that. And I was like, dang, like, and I was just looking at them like, do you really think like that? And I was like, you guys do think like that. It's a bunch of narcissists. Like, most of them don't pass the mental examination the first or second time. You know, they go to other police departments and try to apply once, twice, 3 times up and down the coast. You know, it's in Bakersfield, but, you know, they apply for DPD and for the Kern County Sheriff's Office, you know, and if they lose one, they get the other. And I'd be like, if they're not mentally fit to be a BPD, why would they be mentally fit to be a Kern County Sheriff? You know, it doesn't make sense. But they'll hire them. You know what I mean? With all kinds of stuff on their record. And I'd be like, man, you guys was on some different-ish, you know, and they're narcissistic, many of them, and they like power. And so when they stop somebody, it's like, we stop them. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know if this person was bullied when they was in school, if they had altercations with people of color when they was in school, and then all of a sudden you give them a gun and a badge and tell them to go out there and police the same people that they think are the enemy anyway. And then when they end up killing, and you guys want to know, well, why? Well, they were already scared of us. Right. You know what I mean? Before we didn't have to make a sudden move. They were scared of just stopping us.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I watched a video today of the Minneapolis police profiling this black man, right? And the black man was like, y'all got the wrong person. Oh, well, you fit the description. And he was like, oh, y'all got the wrong person. I'm not, you know, whatever. He asked all the right questions. Am I being detained? You know, am I under arrest? No, am I being detained? And the cop was like, yes. And he was like, for what? Because you might have a warrant. He's like, I might have a warrant. So you're in an alternate reality about I might have a warrant. So they ended up kind of grabbing him and trying to like cuff him. And he got a little aggressive, but I'm gonna tell you why. Cause I was like, oh no, don't get aggressive, you know? Then he calmed down and his partners was videotaping and he was like, where's your ID? And he's like, my ID in my pocket. So they grabbed the wallet and he was like, y'all gonna be feeling real stupid when y'all see my ID. They saw the ID, immediately started taking off his cuffs and everything. He was the feds.
The feds.
Wow.
Yeah, he was the feds.
Wow.
He was like, y'all.
I say that. He was the feds.
Yeah, he went off. He was like, y'all so dumb.
But he's asking them all the right questions before he's getting arrested. And then it's like, okay, now I'm going to tell you who I am. But I didn't tell you who I was before. Right. But, Keela, how bad could that have went if he wasn't the feds? If that was just my brother Derek, you know what I mean? Right. Like, he had nothing else, and he's asking these questions because this is what his sister didn't told him to ask him. You know, and he's being arrested. Say this, say that, and then don't say no more. You know, that's what I always tell my family.
Right.
Tell them your name, tell them your date of birth if they want it, and that's it. Anything else, if I'm getting arrested, I don't want to talk about nothing.
Yep, he wasn't giving any information, but he went off on it. He was like, "I need your card. I need your card. This is what y'all do. Y'all were just he went completely off." And and I could see when he got aggressive a little bit is because he went into his law enforcement mode as the feds instead of like, and then he had to. You could see like, oh, let me chill, like, you know what I mean. But his first instinct was like, "Oh, you know."
Yeah.
But yeah,
and then when they start making it, when they come back and start making it right to you, that it's like, oh, okay. Because I remember one cop stopped me and I said something, and he was like, "Oh, do you know this judge?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm her deputy," which meant I was her prosecutor for that particular year or rotation. And he was like, "Oh, you work for the prosecutor's office?" I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "Oh, okay." And then he just handed my ID and was like, "Have a nice day," right? And I'm sitting here like, okay, like, you know, just sitting here, I was like, man, you guys are like, I said, it's a different ish, like, you know. And it was like, well, we don't want to. Oh, why didn't you just tell me? Oh, why didn't you just tell me? And I'm sitting there like, but what if I wasn't? You were just gonna jack me up for something completely erroneous and illegal and everything else. But if I am, then it's like, okay, well, my life might not work against her because, you know, this is who she is and she knows this, and they might actually believe her. But it's for the millions of people that nobody would believe if it's the cops' word against theirs, if it's just them against one police officer and they say, I mean, you remember that officer that was arrested and I think sentenced like 280 years or something for raping all those black women. All of the black women kept saying nobody would believe me. I was a drug addict, I was a prostitute, and so nobody would believe that he raped me until he raped like the wrong woman. And it ended up being that she, you know, was educated, didn't have no criminal history. She told on him, and then 30, 35 women came out the woodwork like, he raped me too, he raped me too, he raped me too. And I watched the special on that. His parents were still on there like, nah, DNA tests, all kind of stuff. They were like, no, GPS thing where he was raped or where they were raped, leading his car right to where they had been raped, in parking lots where they had been raped, multiple victims being raped in the same place, describing the same thing. They still was like, no, he didn't do that. And I was just sitting there like, yes, he did. You know what I mean? Like,
but that's the country, though. That's how the country. No, they didn't kill him. No, he had a heart attack. Yeah. He didn't die suffocating under that knee. Yeah. No. He was high. He was on some drugs. I can't admit the guilt because if I admit the guilt, then I have to admit the system's guilt.
Right.
But Gilbert, I don't know if they can't admit the guilt or they just don't fully see. I remember watching Rodney King when I was in law school, and I remember the people saying, but he's not being still. Like, he's roaring up like a bear. He's not being still. And I said, how many people could beat your ass with a baton and you just lay there like, stiff as a board? I said, even your mom's whooping your ass with a belt, you jump around. I said, so you get beat with four. When you get beat with 4 batons, you're trying to run away from the batons. You're not running towards them. You're running away from them. You just want them to stop beating you. And like, no, you should just comply and lay down and did this. And I was looking at him, I was like, you know what? I don't know what's scarier. The fact that we're watching the same video and we see such different things, like your opinions over here and mine is over there, or that you really believe that. That you believe that he was really trying to fight 4 to 6 police officers with batons. Like, that's a scary, I mean, Gilbert, more than just, I don't want to take on the guilt. What about the righteous people that are like, I'm righteous in my position? I didn't see, I mean, he was sitting on George Floyd, but he wasn't really leaning on him. He was only kind of putting, this is the neck hold that he was doing. It doesn't necessarily kill you. I could sit under this for 10 minutes. I could do this. And you got, the George Floyd challenge, people kneeling on people and showing them how long they can live underneath that, and how long they can survive underneath that knee chokehold. Those are people that believe that madness. Like, they're the true, they drank the Kool-Aid. Like, they really, they lined up and was like, I want purple. You know what I mean? Or I want red. They ain't just kind of sampling the Kool-Aid. They want the whole cup.
But
And from what I've read, that there's a law against neck restraints. It's only supposed to be used if someone is resisting arrest and only when it's an aggressive resistance. So there's out of all the cameras, not even the people, the store that he allegedly wrote a bad a counterfeit bill, $20 counterfeit bill. If it was, that has never been confirmed yet, but that was what the original call was for, right?
Have we confirmed, and nobody's confirmed that actually is what happened? Because I haven't heard that anybody confirmed that he actually presented a fake $20 bill.
Right. Yeah. That's the alleged, what the original call was supposed to be, but I haven't heard it confirmed either. So, but even if that were the case, he didn't deserve to die over that. And they said he was seemingly intoxicated. This is what the store owner said. Well, if he's seemingly intoxicated, then he's not resisting. Maybe it's because he was, I don't know, because they haven't confirmed that either. You know, if he actually was intoxicated. But we could clearly see, they want us to believe our lying eyes. We could clearly see that he was not resisting. He had his hands behind his back, and he's begging and pleading, calling on his mama. His mom been dead 2 years. You know, it's just like, wow. And even
I heard somebody say, when you call for your mom, isn't that the ultimate submissive, like, statement ever? When you call, like, mommy, mom, help me, mom, God, mom. You know, like, when you call for your mama, not your daddy, when you call for your mama, isn't that the most submissive thing that you could ever do to another human being? Like, it's better than throwing in a white flag. It's definitely saying, you got me. I'm done. Like, it's over. And you know, the sheer terror he must have felt, Keela, when he was laying there, when he got to minute 6, and he's like, I'm really about to die right here while all these people are filming. All these people are walking by me. All these people are around this. Everybody's watching. Nobody's doing anything. Everybody's watching. And everybody said, well, what about those people? Should they be prosecuted? Should they be this? Should they be that? And I was like, what about the fact that they were probably in fear of their life, that if they came toward that police officer, they might have been shot.
Right.
And killed right there on the street. The girl that was filming it, look, she might have been, she looked like she's about 19 or 20, maybe. You know, like, she looked rattled.
It's not even fair to expect the bystanders to jump on a cop when he clearly has no care in the world about murdering someone.
And there's three other fully armed officers standing right there. Like, that's almost like a death sentence. But there's some brothers that said, I might have taken that death sentence. You know,
and that's honorable.
And I was like, yeah.
That's honorable.
I believe that.
Yeah, you know, and if you are willing to do that, I applaud that too, but I don't think it's fair to put that type of judgment on those bystanders, you know, to do that, you know, and I don't think we should expect everyone to be willing to lose their life, you know. That's a hard call to make, you know. I give up my life for this man. What do I do? I think, and honestly, if I was there, I probably would have been in such a shock. Like, they are really doing this. They're really doing this. And they don't care. Yeah. We're filming them.
We're shocked from just like, I didn't watch the Ahmaud Arbrey killing either. So I told you I stopped watching the videos. I couldn't watch it. Like, when they pulled up and like cornered him in, I was just like, I know in his mind, he's like, what the hell are these guys pulling up on me for? Like, I'm trying to jog, you know? Like, and I'm thinking, like, that was the last thought of his life, was like, I'm staring down the barrel of a gun because I'm out here jogging. Like, what the hell is really going on, you know? And then being dead, like, and the fact that it took, you know, 2 months and civil basically unrest for him, you know, for them to get charged is indicative of what our country is like. But I think we're all kind of like PTSD, traumatized, you know, because we're watching these videos, while the fact that more things are taped is great in our favor because the tape is actually bringing light to things. It also speaks to the fact that, what about the millions of soldiers that have died that it wasn't taped? You know, like, there was no video camera, there was no phone camera. And now we're sitting there looking like, well, now, you know, we look back on some of those cases and what they said was going on, it might have been going on. You know what I mean? The officer might have took their, I mean, I've had plenty of people that were charged with selling drugs saying, the officers took my drugs off me, the officers took my money off of me, the officers took my weapons off of me. You know, the officers did this to me. The officer patted me up and let me go, felt all over me. You know, And we never had anything to prove all of these allegations. Now, when you look back, you think like at least 50% of those was probably the truth, you know, and that's sad. That dictates a trauma on you that when you see the police officers, you're naturally like, you know, fearful, and a stress reaction, you know, happens to you. And that's how all of us are living right now. We're living with the layers and layers of Rodney King, you know, the riots, the Ku Klux Klan lynching family members that we know of, you know, just, and then it just keeps going like this and this and this, and then it just gets to here, and we're like, okay, I'm about done. Like, I can't do this anymore. And then you think, well, no, you can't bow to the race because you're one of the good people, and you don't want your kids to live in the same exact environment. But I don't know if it's going to happen in our generation or even in our kids' generation.
I don't either. But I really enjoyed this dialogue. I want to thank you, you know, both of you, and also Dame for assisting me on my first official episode of Unapologetically Pandora. Any takeaways before we close out this live?
I can't wait for the next one.
I'll certainly be, you know, present for the next one, but to all the people that are out there, whenever you are stopped, if you are going to be arrested, please just say, I want a lawyer. You don't want to talk. You don't want to talk your way out of a crime. You never do that. Don't reach for anything until you're asked to reach for it. And just be really careful. Know that they're in a heightened state, and we're in a heightened state. So be careful and protect your life to make it home to your family.
Well, thank you both again, and thank you, Dame. We will be continuing these discussions, I'm sure, because I'm sure this, whatever's going on right now, this is an election year, a pandemic. We have a lot going on, so there's a lot to discuss. But I definitely thank you all. I want you guys to have a great evening. Be safe. Wear your masks, whatever it is you got to do, because we still are in a damn pandemic, aside from trying to stay safe from the civil unrest. So, all right, y'all take care. Thank you.
Bye.
Peace. Thanks, Gilbert.
No problem. Live stream's over.
You know I came in and flossing, I'm actually awesome. I kill it, I'm getting my boom. This grand is old like the Premeire, the sauces, I need to go get them a first. You know I'm strapped to 10, it's feeling like riots, baby, don't get in my face. I don't like playing pretend, I like making money, not making them ends, okay. I'm trying to give me a show for the city, the belly was segregated with designer on bed till they devastated. Got no time to relax if you hesitate, heaven knows. I read the neon letters on the globe and believe it. I'm feeling conceited, fill up the tank, got me a check, feeling the thanks. Keep winning like kids, they think I'm lucky. We ain't no kind of kin, but that's my cousin. 10-piece spice in my wings, that shit bustin'. 10 toes down on the blow, can't tell me nothing. Who would've guessed? We can make it the way that we want it. Who would've guessed? I could wake up to this in the morning.
Wrist like ball, my phone disco ball, like my wrist at all. Wrist like ball, my phone disco ball, like my wrist at all.
You know I came in and flossing.